Well, hello and welcome to our backyard garden here in the South Carolina upstate. It is, I have to think about it again, September 19th of 2025. This is our 29th episode of the season, and it's a Friday morning, beautiful clear blue sky. Pretty much a carbon copy of last week. It's just right around 70 degrees right now, and good time to take a look at the garden. Hard to believe this is the 29th episode already. The first one we did back in, I think, early to mid-February, and there wasn't a lot to see, but my wife was putting in bulbs that day, and mostly glads and a few lilies, and they all came up and gave us a lot of color back in the spring. But now, here in the late summer, it's a very different look for the garden, so we're going to go through that now. If you've been watching these videos through the season, I had a lot of clematis and snapdragons growing out of the concrete along the edge of our garage here, and they had all pretty much died off, and they just kind of looked brown and not too attractive. So I pulled those all out. Also pulled out the canna and the hollies that were clogging up this bed here. This is mostly irises, but there used to be hollies in here when we moved in, and so I just pulled all those out. They tend to regrow because you can't really get the roots too thoroughly, so it's something I'm going to have to continue to work on. Probably, I've been doing it twice a year. I'm probably going to have to do it more like 4 or 5 times a year just to keep up with them, but it looks a lot better than it did. And we've had a lot of weeds in various areas, and I spent a lot of time last weekend just trying to clear all that out. Got a big daisy here, and if you remember last week, this was covered with morning glories. That's another thing I did, was cut back on those because they had just put out so much greenery and not that many flowers, unfortunately. They're pretty, but they're more of a problem than anything else, kind of almost like a pest. But these daisies are doing well, and we've got a lot more buds all over this plant, so we should be getting a lot more of these flowers moving forward in the next few weeks. This is the area that was all completely covered with greenery from the morning glories, and I just cleared the whole thing out, and looks a little better. Also, I've cleared out our weeds over here in the fire pit, and that takes us over into this area. Now, this is primarily a spring bed. We've had mostly crocuses and daffodils in this area, so this time of year there isn't a whole lot to see, but we did get this pokeweed. Got a prop plane going over. Get a lot of that. The airport is only about 5 miles from us, so between airplanes and helicopters we get a lot of air noise here. But this is a pokeweed. It just came up on its own, really just about maybe 4 months ago. Came out of nowhere, did not plant it, but it has a stalk now that's almost 2 inches wide. And even though it's technically a weed, it really is a very ornamental weed, and I've decided to leave it here because it gives us some nice attractive little white flowers in the midsummer, and then those turn into these green berries, which eventually ripen into the purple berries. And it's just kind of a nice looking bush. It's not huge, and it's really the only one that we have. I don't know that I want a whole yard full of these, but to have one I think is not a bad idea. So that's that. And then we have our series of hydrangeas. We have 4 of them coming down the hillside here, and these have all peaked some time ago. The flowers were bright white. Now they've faded to a kind of a pale green color with little red highlights or pink highlights, and they'll just continue to gradually wither. I made a comment this morning in the front yard video that all the leaves look a little bit withered right now. We haven't had rain down here for about 2.5 or 3 weeks, and we do have our sprinkler on every 3rd day. I used to have it on every day, and our lawn person told me that it was creating problems with our grass because it was encouraging the growth of fungus, which we did not want. And so I've gone back to every third day, and we don't get flooding, and yet for the most part the plants are getting enough water, the grass is getting enough water. This time of year, I mean, we're already getting leaves falling off of these bushes, so it's late summer, and before long all these leaves will be falling off. We've got a couple other things as we work our way down here. We've got a nice butterfly bush that's unfortunately been sort of choked out by the huge size of these hydrangeas. It's really in the shadow of that, so it hasn't done as well. We have another one, same sort of butterfly bush with these deep magenta or purple flowers, and this one has done really well. It does not have a hydrangea on top of it. It's next to it, but not on top of it. So this one has had a chance to get really big, and it's put out a lot of flowers, and it's nearing the end of its season, but still getting some nice color out of it. And then various other things, most of which are finished for the year. We have some digitalis. We have a lot of these lilies, some impatiens that we put in back in the spring. We've had really variable experience with impatiens in this backyard. Unfortunately, I've not been overly impressed with them. We've had a couple of good years, and we've had probably just as many years where they really didn't do anything. I mean, this is a good example right in here. The plants are alive, but they're not really putting out much in the way of flowers. So as I say, I'm not too impressed. I don't think we'll do those next year. It's just not worth the trouble. But it will be interesting to see what comes back next year. There are a lot of weeds and a lot of dead brush back in here. I probably won't do much with that until winter or early spring. I might pull some of the weeds out, but this bed is, I mean, for the most part, it's kind of done outside of what's left of the hydrangeas and the occasional flower that pokes out. The only other thing going on over here is these azaleas, and I think we're going to be getting more as I look closer. You can see a number of buds kind of all through here, and so I think as we move into late September and early October, we'll get more blooming. Typically these do bloom twice a year. Huge bloom in the spring, and then a little bit less in the fall, but it's still enough to give you some nice color at a time when most of the color is already gone. So I've also done a lot of clearing out back in here. This was an area that was really choked with weeds in the really through most of the summer. Got a couple hostas back here that are just sort of finishing up. They just finished blooming. They're very late bloomers, probably more because we're in a shady area here. There isn't a lot of sunlight back in here. And we have our one wisteria. I don't know if this thing is going to survive. It's been here now for about 3 years, and it doesn't really grow, but it doesn't really die off either. It's certainly not doing as well as this wisteria, which is up on the fence and has grown. In some cases, I'm seeing vines that have gone a good 20 feet away. I did a lot of thinning of this bed down here. I'm going to show that off in a few minutes, but as I say, I've been doing a lot of work back here to try to make this area look a little bit nicer. Got our little area with the swing. I can't say enough, if you've got water in your yard or near your yard, swing is pretty inexpensive, and it's just a nice way to relax, looking at the water and all the insects and birds and everything else, and just kind of taking in nature. It's a fun way to relax in the late afternoon, and especially once the leaves start to turn in the fall. It's a nice way to enjoy that. Over here we've got lamb's ear. I talk about that a lot. It's just more or less a ground cover plant, but it does have flowers that come up. They bloomed about 2 months ago, and they're long since finished. But this is the last of our 6 azaleas here. Certainly we had our Asiatic lilies here. They're all done for the year. We've got another daisy that's getting ready to bloom here. Some more zinnias. These were all planted from seed back in April for the most part, and then put them in May. And they've been on their own since then, very low maintenance, and they give us lots and lots of flowers. And then I always talk about this particular knockout rose. In the shadow here, it's a little difficult to see, but the flowers on this are absolutely gorgeous. It's just a blood red color, and it's probably the single most prolific rose, certainly knockout rose that we have. We've got some of these climbing roses that you're going to see in a couple minutes. They probably put out more flowers overall, but in terms of impact, this is a very, very impressive plant. Here, I don't know what this is. If any of you have ideas or suggestions, let me know. It's some sort of wildflower, and we have a similar one over on the other side of the trellis. Back in here, it's more of a pink color. We put these in years ago, but neither my wife nor I could remember what the name was. And they're beautiful, and they're doing very well, and they're low maintenance, so we like them. Got our camellia here. I tend to forget and call these gardenias, but it's a camellia. And we have 4 of those back here, and they bloomed. It was probably the best blooming that we had ever had last year. They typically had been blooming late January through mid-February, but last year they started a little bit later, about mid-February, and we probably had a good 6 or 8 weeks worth of blooms off of those big red flowers with yellow centers. It's a very tropical looking flower, just a nice addition, and a nice shrub. It's a nice tropical looking green shrub. They do get fairly large at a slow rate. They're not terribly invasive, but you can cut them back if you want to, but I like the way they look. I like what they add to our backyard here. Another big daisy with 1 flower on it, but a lot of buds waiting to bust out in the near future. And then we have our trellis just covered with jasmine and climbing roses, as you can see right here, and also clematis. And I chopped this back quite a bit last week. You'd never know it, but a lot of the vines, mostly jasmine vines, were growing down into the walkway here. You could barely get through. So I got on that. This is something I'm going to have to do probably, again, 2-3 times a year, just to kind of keep these under control. But you'll get these branches off of the climbing rose that'll go 10 feet and grow seemingly in a few days. So I've got to stay on top of all that, or they get out of control. We have a climbing rose here. The climbing part is kind of done, but the short part is giving us a beautiful bloom right now. Nice pink flower. This one has been pretty prolific, even though it loses its leaves every year to black spot. It's not too resistant to that, but it does give us lots and lots of flowers through the year. Go down here, we've got a spiderwort. This is one that it doesn't do extremely well, but it does well enough that it's a nice addition to our garden. And then our single vinca right here, we had tons of vinca over the last couple of years, but for some reason that's about the only one that came up this year. We didn't put any in. We just let it come up from seed, but it didn't do much this year. So we'll see what happens next year if they come back. If not, I might put some more in, because they do typically do very well. Since impatiens don't do so well here, these do, and they're very similar to impatiens in that they're fairly low low to the ground, but they, if they're doing well, they put out lots and lots of flowers. Maybe not as many colors, but they're still pretty prolific. Otherwise, we've got a lot of calla lilies back in here, but they're all done for the year. It's primarily a spring flower. We've got about 6 different varieties of it through here and other parts of the garden. I cannot recommend these highly enough. They're low maintenance, they give beautiful flowers, and they're not terribly expensive, and they do spread. They're not invasive, but they do very, very well. This is a bed that I do need to do a lot of work on. I've got a couple trees growing pretty rapidly. I've got a big maple tree here. I've had a lot of those in the garden this year, and they need to be chopped out pretty frequently before they get big. We've got a variation of an oak tree over here. I see another maple tree over there. So a lot of work that needs to be done, but I'll try to get to it. I'm working on the upper portion of the garden today. I've hit the side yards and just tried to get this place looking good as we move into the fall. Just kind of working on it section by section. Over here we've got another big butterfly bush. This is the single biggest one that we have in the garden. Again, it's a nice bright light purple, dark pink color. It's just since last week, it looks like the number of flowers has really dropped off as we get towards the fall equinox. So I guess the autumnal equinox technically. And so this might be getting close to being done. Maybe another couple weeks of color, and then that'll be about it. Now behind all that, I mentioned these earlier. We're going to get a better view of these, but these pink climbing roses. We have a big one back in here. It has covered a large area. Same thing up on the trellis, and we'll get a better view of that. But those are remarkably prolific. They're huge, and they've just given us thousands, literally, of flowers through the summer. You can see some back in here, and you'd think, okay, late September, you're not going to have that many flowers, and yet they're blooming almost as much as they did back in the spring. Now, this area has been a little bit of a disappointment for us. We had a big trampoline here for our children until early last year. And we removed that because they weren't using it at all. And we put in a number of different flowers. They tend to just bake in the sun, even though they get water. In fact, most of the water tends to drain from the sprinkler down. This is at the bottom of the hill, so this area will get to be almost a kind of a tidal basin. So there is a lot of water back here, but they really get a little too much sun. We've had balloon flowers. Those have done pretty well. We had zinnias, and you can kind of see the remains of them. The zinnias were doing pretty well. These were ones that, again, came from seed, but some animal came through about midsummer and just ate all of them down. We think it might have been a deer, but unfortunately, right now, at least at this time of year, we've got primarily weeds back here. We've got a few gladiolas that finished up, but really nothing else that's giving us any color in this area. Even all of our clematis over here on the fence, our few roses, they're all pretty much done. Got a big weeping cherry here that gives us some nice flowers in the springtime, and another wisteria here. I'm gonna have to get back in this area and chop back some of the canna. These have really started to take over. I did some cutting back, as we'll see in a moment, last weekend, but I'm gonna have to get up here. I want to keep these contained. Right now we have most of them contained in this area that's bounded by railroad ties. I call this the terrace because we have several different levels going down to the pond level, but these escaped their boundary, and have really filled this area in. And it's an area that we're not really doing much else with, so it's not a huge problem. But I don't want these to get out of control, because they can do that very quickly. As you can see, some of these plants are as much as 7 feet tall, and it would be different if they put out lots and lots of beautiful flowers, but they really put out very few. Ours tend to have either a parasite or a nutritional problem, and the leaves really struggle. So we get very few flowers out of these things, which is just, I mean, looking back, I kind of regret having put them in, because they are probably more trouble than they're worth. The smaller ones, the lighter green leaf plants, do pretty well. They give us a nice tropical yellow looking flower, but these taller ones with the darker leaves are the red ones, and they really put out very few flowers. It's just not worth the trouble, I don't think. At least not in our yard, it has not been. Now this area I just went through a week ago, and I cut back all of the canna that were growing, again, outside of their boundary here, into this bed, and you can see they're already putting up shoots. So I'm gonna have to come through probably with Roundup and just spray that area, try to finish it off. I preferred to have daylilies and irises and black-eyed Susans back here, and for the most part those did well, but I did notice that the daylilies in this area were kind of struggling this year. They were not doing as well as they had done in previous years, and I think the canna taking over is not helping anything, but we'll see how things do next week. But I came through here and really tried to chop out as many weeds and just thin a lot of things out, like the jasmine. The jasmine will encroach into this area, and you're kind of seeing it here. These vines here are jasmine, and they're I need to actually get back here today and chop that out a little bit more. Now we saw from the other direction the trellis, and down here about 3 or 4 feet lower, it's really towering over us, but you can kind of see these flowers, big tufts of flowers blooming. Hopefully they'll continue to for a while. I don't know how much longer they'll bloom, but they're absolutely beautiful this time of year. Over in here, these beds down in this section of the terrace, these were struggling, just choked with weeds, and again, they had a lot of the canna growing in there. And as I look, just 6 days after I went through here and chopped this stuff back, I'm getting canna growing again. Surrounding that are these daylilies. I really wanted to give these the best chance they could have. So there was just about everything you can imagine, little maple trees and Virginia creeper. Fortunately, I didn't find any poison ivy, but I just wanted to thin this out, and it's something I'm going to have to do just more frequently in the future. A few black-eyed Susans in here that are still growing, but for the most part, of course, flower-wise, this area is about done. We have a few black-eyed Susans over in here that are still blooming, but that's going to be at the limit of the color there. And having said all that, we're going to head back up towards the house. We'll come over this way. Interesting thing, these tea olives, we have 8 of these that we put in along this border, and they're not terribly fast growing. We put these in 2019, and they're about 7 or 8 feet tall, most of them. They started off probably 4 or 5 feet tall, so they do give a nice border, and they bloom twice a year with these little white flowers, fairly fragrant. This one is just covered with them. We have just a few on the other plants. I'm not sure why that one has so many more. This one has quite a few as well. This plant here has kind of struggled. I wasn't sure if it was going to make it in the early years, but it looks like it's got a lot of new growth on it, so I think it'll come along. And we've got another one up here. I thinned out this area over on the side, just choked with weeds, And the hostas are all finished. We have about 8 or 9 hostas going up the side of the house. And then over here, this is a bed that I've been working on this week. I have some more work to do with weeding, but this was all solid weeds in here, and I got most of that out. Now, one thing that's worth looking at, we've got some veronica here that are still blooming. There were some down in the lower bed that they're all finished. These are still doing well, and they typically will attract bumblebees. So if you like bumblebees, you'll get a lot of those. Now, I deadheaded these roses a few weeks ago, and it seems to be paying off because we're getting some more buds. This is a knockout yellow rose. This pink one here is getting a lot of buds on it all of a sudden, and that's really the key to these things. You have to deadhead them. If you don't, you're going to get your blooms in the spring, and that might be about all you get for the whole year. So that was a lesson to me. I kept saying, well, I need to get out here, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I kept not doing it. And finally I did, and we're getting all kinds of flowers now. Lots of weeds back in here. I still need to do work on this, really clear this area out. I do see, interestingly, kind of hidden, we have a little tomato here. We have fairly prolific tomato plants. They haven't done a lot this year. Got one over here too. These, I think technically they're grape tomatoes, but they have these odd elongated fruit. One there that I didn't even notice, it's kind of dried up. But if you were watching these videos when we started doing them a couple years ago, we had at one point literally hundreds of grape tomatoes, and those have kind of died back. They have not come back in recent years. But here we have what's left of a couple morning glories. Absolutely beautiful one right here with the little purple or blue stripes and the little pink throat. There's another one down in there, and then we have this white one with a pink throat here. I'm going to leave those. I'm going to take down a lot of the weeds and vines and so forth that are back in here, but I'm going to leave those because they're still giving us some really pretty flowers, and they don't they're not excessive in the amount of greenery that they're giving us. Now, there's a lot of other things that have finished up for the year. A lot of daylilies through here, calla lilies, lilacs, and Asiatic lilies. I've cut all those back. I did a lot of work just last night, and got a lot of weeds out of this area, so it looks a little more presentable. And also another one of these climbing roses with the little pink flowers, and you can see these tufts hanging all over, and it really gives an impressive appearance. It's not like the entire plant is covered with them, but when you get these long branches that are covered with these pink flowers, it's a really impressive sight, and kind of interesting to see too. When they first come out, they are on the same branch, the same plant. You're getting both light and dark pink. You don't see that so much. Once they've gotten out in the sun for even a few hours, a lot of that bleaches out. But when they first open up, you're getting kind of a two-toned effect, which is really nice. And I have to do some cutting back on this because, as you can see, it's all the way up to the second floor of our deck, and it has a tendency to drape out into the yard a little more than I would like. And our stairway here has been, at times this summer, has been impassable because the branches grow so quickly. So I've had to go back 2 or 3 times and chop those back. But all in all, things are doing well. Needless to say, when you take care of your garden and you deadhead it and you pull weeds and so on, it looks better. I have not had a lot of time for that this summer until the last few weeks. And now that I am, I'm really happy with how most of this is looking. But this is a bed I'm going to be working on this weekend, so hopefully next week it'll look a lot better. And so that's about it for this week. Hope you enjoyed our tours, and again, still beautiful weather. Now it's probably about 72 or 73 degrees, and looks like it's going to be just a beautiful day. They said it was going to be pretty hot, well up into the 80s again, just when you think it's you're past that stuff for the year, but here we are. But it'll be chilly soon enough, so I'm going to take it all in. Hope it's sunny wherever you are, and until next time. Oh, one last thing. I almost got away. Got our little furry friends up here. But you can see little Scarlet. She's a little kitten that we got a few weeks ago. And behind her is another kitten that we got, little Dipper, little black short-haired kitty, and they're both just meowing at me left and right up there on the porch. They want some attention. They want to be on the show. So there you go, guys. All right. So again, hope it's sunny wherever you are, and until next time, happy gardening.